Welcome to the Business Steward. I'm Austin. Most small business owners are making their biggest decisions on a gut feeling and a bank balance. I'm here today with Stephen Abbott, who spent 20 years trying to fix that. He's the founder of Kingdom CFO, with 15 years spent inside Fortune 500 companies, from everything with accounting to financial planning to operations. And now he takes those same processes to businesses with a fraction of the headcount and none of the finance department. So, Stephen, before we really get into what this show is about, I want to start here with this question. Why does this even need to exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of people that will give financial advice, accounting advice. You can go find the how do I run QuickBooks online? How do I do my bookkeeping? There's a lot of great information out there, and there's a need for that. But what I've seen is there's really a lack of conversation around what is it what does it look like, and what does that mean when you believe in stewardship? And there's a lot of people that I think understand that concept. I was talking to someone and asking them what they thought it meant, and they were kind of like, "Oh yeah, spend less than you earn," and kind of just some very personal, finance-driven type things, and try and give more, donate. And it was this idea around stewardship, but we want to open up that conversation around how do you really weave that idea of stewardship into your business, and what does it mean specifically for small business owners, and how they don't just think of stewardship as something for their personal finances, but something for their business as well.
Interesting. So, I guess for you, right, 20 years working in this industry, from large companies to what we do now, was there a specific point when stewardship really became the foundation for how you think about business? Or was it more of like just over time, kind of a gradual, slow build into kind of the center point, the central focus for what you do?
Yeah. And even though I've been an accountant and, kind of working in this space for 20 years, it hasn't been an idea in my head since the beginning. Really over the past, I would say 5 to 7 years, really just kind of exploring this idea of how do you weave more of the Bible into what I do. Meaning, when I started the business, I believe in God, want to do work that's honoring to Him, and had those ideas in mind, which I think a lot of Christian business owners start from that place. Like, it's very bold to say, "Hey, I can open my own business and I can do all of this." It's a lot to do that, and so it's a step of faith to do that. So I think a lot of business owners start from there. But kind of as I've grown working with clients and having conversations with them, um, I've come to this understanding as I read more and dive deeper into the Bible that the idea of stewardship, I don't think is new to most Christians. There's a lot of people that understand stewardship, even if you don't call yourself a Christian. This idea of being a good steward, taking care of things that aren't yours, and so, I've wanted to weave more of the Bible into what I do, and in the way we advise our clients. You know, I've spent the past 2 to 3 years really trying to dive deep into, hey, if I'm going to have a conversation with a client and give them advice, is it just good advice in my head? Is it from the training and what I've learned over the years, or if I held up the Bible to the advice I'm giving, could I apply biblical biblical ideas and understanding to the way we guide? And as I've kind of spent that time trying to get deeper and make sure that our guidance really aligns with the Word of God, stewardship just continued to kind of come up as a central point of what that was. And really, I would say over the last year, that's really when it's hit home that stewardship is the underlying idea of everything, of trying to weave the Bible into our business and how we operate. It's really became clear, like that's what this is about. Is it's coming from that starting point of going, I don't own this business, God does, and that completely changes the way you make decisions and think about your business.
Yeah. And I think that really what that culminated in, right? As we ended 2025, we kicked off 2026. We really kind of rebranded and renamed the
Mm-hmm.
firm, right? Previously, we were Abbott CFO Solutions, and we made that transition to become Kingdom CFO, which when it was interesting. I actually shared, someone asked, where do you work? What's the name of the business you work with? And I said, oh, Kingdom CFO. And then they kind of paused for a second and we're trying to decipher, okay, what does this mean? What is this about? So it was it's a bold name. It was a bold move. I guess if you could kind of clue us in, what were you really trying to signal with that name change, with that shift, specifically to Kingdom CFO? I remember it was a process of kind of
Mm-hmm.
what's the best name? What's going to really articulate who we are?
Yeah. So the simplest piece, right? We were just talking about stewardship and just kind of that change over time. And as I dove deeper and just trying to understand the Bible and how it applied to business more, was taking my name off of it, right? Sure, in the natural world, I'm the owner on the business. If you go ask the state, that's what they're going to tell you. That's what the IRS is going to say. I got to pay taxes on all of it. But taking my name off of it was kind of the simpler part of, that was the call here, and what I felt like God was leading me towards. With that being said, if you own a business and you have your name on it, that's not a bad thing. It was just what I felt led to do. But going with the Kingdom CFO, I think when I started thinking about stewardship and how we wanted to get more specific, be more bold, upfront with people, like, hey, this is where our advice comes from. This is what it looks like. Explored a few different names, but you know, just the verse, seek first the kingdom, and just that's what we're about, is trying to expand the kingdom of God here on earth. The way we do that is through guiding other business owners, and they have a call on their heart. They're trying to advance the kingdom here on earth, and so Kingdom CFO just felt like a perfect fit. And the domain happened to be open, which is really hard to do these days, is a great name and a domain that's open, and then being able to secure it. So that was the move we made, and I'm really glad we did.
It really kind of became less about who, uh, about building around you, right? But really
Mm-hmm.
more building around the kingdom of God, really amplifying and very clearly we are trying to build God's kingdom. We're trying to seek that kingdom first. We're trying to build that, you know, uh, here on earth as it is in heaven kind of mentality when we're going to serve our clients, when we're going to serve businesses, but also just as we're connecting and really even with the way we operate within our own business.
Yeah, I mean, the team has grown. We've hired. We're trying to make an impact bigger than any one of us. And really, that's the point of this podcast, is to, even if you're not a client of ours, it's a way to kind of learn new things, stretch your own understanding of stewardship. We're always going to be grounded in at least one Bible verse, kind of what we're speaking to, but just sharing our approach, the way we're thinking about it, trying to weave that in. And so my hope is that as people listen to this, maybe you don't need an accountant, or you already have one that you're happy with, but this is hopefully a place where people can come to just get some new ideas, get challenged on their beliefs, challenge them to go jump into scripture and think about how it applies to the decisions they make and how they run their business.
And like you said, right, grounded in scripture. There was one particular verse that probably over a year ago we were just kind of talking about the mentality we wanted to, as the team was getting ready to grow. There was one specific verse we came back to, and it's really become kind of our verse, right? This we continually. I don't think there's a week that goes by where we don't reference this verse. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing that Psalm 24:1 with us,
Yeah.
and then really help us understand, why is this specific verse the foundation of everything Kingdom CFO?
Yeah. So, we're talking about stewardship. I think there's maybe there's other verses that people think of when they think of stewardship, but this is the one that I come to, which is, you said it, Psalms 24:1, which is, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. When I read that verse, it's very clear. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, right? That includes your business. When you think about your business, that's your cash, your team, your clients, your reputation, all of it belongs to God, right? All means all, everything means everything. There's not some piece of the business, oh, he doesn't own that, or if you are like, oh, well, stewardship is really my personal finances. Like, I've said this for a long time, even before we really got on the stewardship piece, but I've told people, well, we focus on business in the finances, the accounting. We don't jump into the world of like what a financial planner would do on the personal side, but everything that flows out of the business turns into your personal. So your business finances are very tied to your personal finances. But I think, it's really interesting the way this verse says it. It says everything in it, the world, and then it clarifies, like, everything means everything, which means the people, but it clarifies, and all who live in it. So I just look at that as, it's kind of this extra punctuation or clarification that, oh, by the way, like the people who live in it is the important part of it. So it really just kind of flows through. And I think in many ways, we're here for relationship. Our businesses are a lot of interconnected relationships with clients, with employees, with vendors. And so when you think about it, all of those relationships are people. There's people on the other end of it. And I think that last part of that verse, it's kind of making that stronger a point of the people. And that's a large part of where, if you're a steward, that I really see where people think differently about their relationships and how they might make a decision differently if they have that stewardship foundation.
And it really is. I love this verse, and it's just the whole idea that at the end of the day, right, we don't own the business, God does. So if there is someone listening to this, watching it, and hey, I'm a Christian business owner, like this is great, this is awesome, could you help us break down what's the difference between being a Christian who owns a business versus being a steward of a business that God owns?
Yeah. There's a couple of kind of like catchphrase things, or what I've heard, which is just kind of the interesting starting point, which is an owner is going to maximize for themselves, but a steward is going to manage behalf on someone else. I think there's another one that you had shared with me when you were talking to someone. I think it's an owner manages, but steward is going to grow, or it's something like that, right?
Yeah. It was a business owner will manage the business, but a steward will grow the business.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting frame of reference. But what I found in kind of where our firm focuses on is really three specific areas that we see stewards kind of think differently, and how their business, how they run their business differently comes about. So the first is, if you're working for the Lord, you want to do it with excellence. You're wanting to do it with integrity, and all of those types of things. But it first shows up with how you operate the business. So, there is a lot as a business owner to worry about. Maybe worry is not the right word, but there's a lot of things that you have to do, right? You have sales, you have marketing, you're trying to figure out your product, you're trying to figure out your service. How do you deliver it? How do you do that? How do you make sure customers are excited to buy it? Pricing your product, you have employees. How do you take care of them? All these things. But sometimes what we can end up with is we don't do everything with excellence. Like, we're not trying to move towards that. And I'm not saying that every single process in your business is going to be 100% top tier, ready to go, right? At the end of the day, you've got to move as a business owner. you can't get stuck in perfection. But you have to be willing to go, hey, I need to make sure that the key things in my business, I'm trying to operate at a very high level. I'm not going to just let things slack and get by. What that looks like is, you know, making sure that your financials are in order, making sure you're hiring someone that can take care of it, or spending the time to learn how to be an expert in that. So as an accounting firm, the two areas we help in this is we come in and we feel that need and take care of your accounting. We know what excellence looks like from our experience, our team that we have in place. And we come in and put that in for your business. We'll come in. It's not some cookie cutter process. We're putting in what your business needs, and as your business grows, that need changes. What a business doing $1 million in revenue needs is different than what a business doing 10 million in revenue needs, and so on and so forth. But the other is, you know, all of our engagements come with at least a quarterly advisory meeting. We're not just sending over reports. We're having conversations with you. We're helping you along. We're not your marketing experts, but we're going to be able to tell in your financials, like, you've got a marketing problem. You need to work on that. Like, this is your big bottleneck to growth, or a sales process, or, hey, your margin isn't looking right. You really need to work on your operations, or it's your pricing, right? Margin could be operations or pricing, one or the other, right? And we can usually talk through with you and identify what that is. And then, you know, we're not an operations experts, we're not marketing experts, but we can usually talk through and understand and help guide you on where that is. And then we have a lot of people in our network that can potentially help you with that, or, you know, start talking through and at least getting you in the direction. And then, you know, we're going to follow up on it. There is going to be a little bit of accountability in this, in a partnership, because we want your best interest to be at our heart. You know, we believe your business is owned by God, so we're going to hold you accountable and make sure and ask and check in on, hey, we've talked about these things, and, you know, your desire is to grow it. And part of the bottleneck is your sales process. Like, what steps are you making to improve? And the other thing is, we want to help you identify, like, hey, it is improving. We're seeing that in the financials. So that's really the first piece, is how you operate your business and do it with excellence. The second, which is probably a little bit more obvious with stewardship, is, what do you do with the money? What do you do with the profits? And a lot of people may think about that as, okay, I did this revenue, it cost me this to do everything, and what came out the door at the end was this amount of money. And some of that needs for you to live, and maybe everyone's like, oh, okay, so it's just a conversation about, am I donating more, doing something like that? But it's really not. You know, if you think about every dollar that comes in the door, you're either spending it on something, or it's coming back to you. And even if you're spending it on something, you know, there can be good stewardship in that. You might be spending too much in certain areas. Maybe your marketing is not being very successful. You're not getting the right ROI on it. Is it really good stewardship? It's not a bad thing to spend on marketing, but if it's not getting you the result you need, should you really continue to spend on it? I don't know. Maybe there's a conversation about you have to do some business travel, and you're profitable, but you travel first class everywhere. You know, maybe that should be a conversation. Is that really the best use of those dollars? And I'm not thinking about it like, hey, you could just donate more if you just flew and coach, but maybe you should invest that in hiring another salesperson. If you're very successful, you've got a good process there. I mean, there can be a lot of conversations, but what I think of it as, on that, you know, how you spend the money, it's not just the profit left over, but how you spend every dollar that comes in, that's generating you hopefully more revenue, and how are you doing that? And then there's the third piece, which is the last part of that verse, which is, how do you treat your people? And I say your people, and a lot of people may go, okay, my employees. But really it's everyone. It's your customers. It's your employees. It could be your service providers. It could just be your vendors. Maybe you're buying a product from someone. But it's everyone in every relationship in your business. How do you interact with them? How do you treat them differently? Are you working as a partner with them? Right? I believe that every client we have, we're trying to help grow their business. So our business will grow as they come on and we support them. Their business should grow. Just like we have some vendors that we work with. Like I want them to grow too. We're not just sending the money and hoping things work out. Like we're partnering in every direction. And I want to raise everyone's business, not just mine. And that's really kind of that mentality. And then employees as well. Like I want them taken care of. I want their living to increase. We want all of those things to happen. And so, especially for us when we're having conversations and advising our clients, we're not just going to tell you, hey, here's the thing to get you the most profit and eke every cent out of it. We're still going to want that for your business, but we're also going to take into account, like, hey, how do you partner with your customers and your vendors and your employees, and how do you continue to grow your business and steward it, but how do you also steward the people, which may mean stewarding their, having their best interests in mind as well, not just your own. So those are the big three areas when I think about stewardship and how we guide our clients, but also how I think every business owner should really, think through things.
Yeah, that's really good. It almost making that transition from owner to steward, right? To business steward. It's almost you're focusing less on income and focusing more on impact.
Oh
How
yeah.
does what I do impact the business that God owns, the people that serve God, the people that I serve, um, how are the financials impacted by what we're doing? And so it's such a key shift crossing over from that I own my business to I steward my business. So just to clarify and kind of set this framework going forward, right? This is one of the things we've talked about. So you identified operations, financials, finances, and people. Those are kind of the three lanes where business stewardship really kind of drives or rides or cruises. And so just going forward, right? Those are kind of the three areas where each episode
Yep.
we're going to focus on one of those particular, business, operations, finances, people. This is where we'll live each episode.
Yep. That's the intent is, I want the listeners to understand, what they're getting into, what they're going to expect each week. And those three areas, that's really our topic each week. We'll kind of draw from one of those areas. A lot, sometimes we've already got about a dozen episodes kind of planned out and what we want to talk about. A lot of that comes from the conversations we're having with clients today or questions that we get. I interact with a lot of business owners that aren't necessarily our clients, and just things that weigh on them or questions they have. And so, we're going to draw from the questions we already get, the things that we know people are challenged with. But, I also encourage listeners to, reach out to us and submit questions like, hey, I'd love for you to speak on this topic, or, it's been something that's weighing on me. And even if we have things planned out, we may jump in and feel led to address a specific topic. So we'd love for people to submit questions and or topics for us to address too. So we want this to be useful and relevant to the listeners. We don't want to talk about, just whatever comes in our head, but make sure that it's something that is actionable and people can take something away from it to do better or do differently, maybe.
And so with that kind of takeaway mentality, right? The goal is at the end of every episode, right? We'll have one kind of key takeaway. Okay, we've given you a lot of information. We've given you insight. We've given you instruction, information. So what can you do with this? So for someone listening to this now, business owners listening to it, they're thinking, okay, I hear what you're saying. What's one key thing, one action step, one next step they can take this week to really start shifting that mindset to thinking like a steward and less like an owner?
Yeah. Something that just, we hadn't talked about this before when we were planning this episode, but something that popped in my head. I thought it was, it's interesting that, a pastor, or if you lead a nonprofit, the idea of stewardship is probably in how you think about that ministry is probably very ingrained in your thought process. And why is that? Because, well, as a pastor, or even as a director or CEO of a nonprofit, you don't own it, right? And a lot of people have given their money freely to your organization, and that's how you operate, is by other people have, you didn't provide them a service, you didn't provide them a product. They've decided to give freely their hard-earned money to you, and then you don't own it, so you don't if there's profit left over, I mean, a nonprofit shouldn't have that, but sometimes there's money left over and it gets used in future years, but it's not yours. And so that just popped in my head, and I thought it was interesting because one of the things we talk about is like business as a ministry. We view our business, yes, we're an accounting firm, but we view it as a ministry. No, we're not a nonprofit, but that's kind of our mentality. So I think it was just interesting, that kind of viewpoint. And what I'd say is, for a business owner that's listening to this, I hope you join with us and continue to listen, and you get a lot of value out of this. But I'd say off this discussion is like, just think about the idea of stewardship, and maybe you already have some ideas about it, but I'd really just kind of seek like, what do you need to think about differently about stewardship in your business? And I brought that kind of idea that popped in my head up because, maybe an easy place to put is go, okay, if I viewed my business as a ministry, and if I thought about it like I was running a church instead of running a business, and like, yes, I understand people pay me money for my service or my product that I provide them. But if I think about it like a donation, does that draw up any questions that I would look at in my business? Would I do some things differently? Would I make different decisions? And I don't mean that like as a guilt exercise. To me, that's not what I'm trying to put there. But if you're going to progress and you're going to try and challenge the way you think and renew your mind about your business and stewardship, starting to think about like, hey, is there a place that I need to start thinking about specifically? Because you can't just go change everything in your business at once, but starting to tackle like, hey, is it this operational side? Is it my finances, or is it my people? Like, kind of think through those. Is there one of those that I should start thinking about differently? Pick one, and then, okay, underneath that, like, is there an area where I feel like I'm called to change something or look at it differently? And just start asking those questions and starting to explore on your own. And then, maybe we'll have a topic on it soon, or it's something you could submit and get some insight on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess just as we wrap up this episode, right, this first episode of the Business Steward, what would be kind of the verse to kind of tie it all up and carry us really into these next several episodes that we have going forward?
Yeah. So the verse that I have here is Matthew 25:23. The start of that verse is, well done, good and faithful servant. Mm-hmm. So just getting straight into stewardship and being a servant. And then the rest of that verse goes into, you have been faithful with a few things, I will put you in charge of many things. And so, that's what we've kind of been talking about, is like you're stewarding. This is God's business. Stewarding also means growing, and that desire to see your business grow. And my belief is that as business owners have that shift and start thinking about stewardship, and then putting that into practical use in their business, that this is what I hope to hear. And I hope that every business owner that's listening to this hears one day is, well done, good and faithful servant, and that God sees you, and that he's going to continue to increase and put you in charge of many things. Sometimes that's scary, but once you're trusted with a little, you'll continue to be trusted with more. And the impact that each of us will have on this earth, expanding the kingdom, will continue to grow. So that's what stewardship and the point of this podcast is all about, is to continue those little steps of taking business owners a little bit further in this journey and working that out.
Yeah, it's really, that's the goal, right? Is we're not trying to build profitable businesses. We're trying to build faithful businesses. We're trying to build businesses built on stewardship. That I love Galatians says, do not grow weary in well-doing, for in due time you will reap a harvest, right? That's what we're striving towards, is even when stewarding a business is challenging, even when it's hard, right? We're not going to grow weary. We're going to steward it. We're going to grow this thing. We're going to be faithful to the blessings that God has given us, with the responsibility of growing a business that ultimately gives back, right? That makes an impact. That's really kind of what we're building towards as we move forward, as we produce this show, as we talk about operations, finances, people, and really try to guide business stewards, not business owners, but business stewards into being faithful with their businesses.
Amen.
So awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you for taking time to break down what the business steward is all about. I'm really excited. I think we've got you said it, we've got like a dozen episodes. I'm excited for all the things we're going to cover, the opportunities we'll have to help business owners become business stewards. But we're going to wrap this one up for today. So thank you so much again, just for your time, for your heart, for the business steward. So if you're watching, thank you. And we'll see you in the next one.
Amen.